Postmortem Radio. I am your host, Oz. Here we are, post Halloween Ends, joined by the blonde in front, Katie. How we doing? She's on location from Telluride. How we doing?
I'm doing great in Telluride. I made sure to bring my Halloween shirts, though, because I knew we'd be reviewing. So I made sure I am all equipped, to talk Halloween. At least Halloween Ends. Yeah.
Yep. It's funny because I have the same shirt you're wearing, and I wore it for round two when I saw
nice.
it at the theater. Yeah. And also we have, as always, the bald guy in the back, the disgruntled JK.
How
you
doing this
tonight?
time. I'm doing well. Not this time. I am all smiles, and I'm so thankful that David Gordon Green made it a trilogy that focused on 3 different styles of films. And for us here, Corey dies tonight.
Well, a lot of people died that night. But yeah, okay. So we are obviously here, much anticipation for Halloween Ends. And I don't know, what do you guys think? Do we want to change things up? Have me go first this time?
You go
I say
first.
dealer's choice. This is you got the home field advantage. You go first, Oz.
Okay. The house will go first. All right. Well, takeaways from this film. I've seen a lot on Facebook and Twitter, and a lot of when they said that this film was going to be divisive, I had no idea. that it was going to be to this degree. I actually had a listener message me. They had just seen it for the first time today and said, "Hey, you gotta tear this thing. You gotta tear this thing to shreds on postmortem when you do the episode." And you know what? I mean, honestly, was it a great film? No, but I didn't love it, but I didn't really hate it all that much either. It has its problems, sure, but it's a Halloween movie. The first thing right off the bat that I did not like was the font. I did not like they changed the font to the Halloween 3. I know there's Halloween 3 fans out there. They probably dug it. But that's one of the things that I loved so much about the last 2 films was that they kept that they paid homage to it, and the font was the same. It was orange. It was the same as it was in 78. And I loved that about it. I did have problems with whole buddy system Corey thing. I wasn't crazy about Michael Myers. He doesn't have a sidekick to me. That part was rough for me. And I get that they were trying to do something different. I do appreciate that, because I know we've seen somebody finds Michael and they nurse him back to health, and then he turns and kills them, and I mean we've seen all that before. So I'm glad they didn't just regurgitate that like we've seen in Halloween 5 or other things. But it didn't fit to me. It just didn't seem like it fit right to me, the whole. And then when they're the homeless dude, I mean, what has he been living for 4 years in the sewer on, just rats and, I mean, vegetation or what? I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get why he came out and he pulled Corey in there in the first place. Walking out of this movie, honestly, though, I felt kind of like walking into my kid's room. I kind of felt like, this shit's a mess, man. You need to clean this shit up. There's shit everywhere. It was just all over the place. I mean, that's how I felt walking out of the thing. Positives, though, I will say I love the fact that they did give it a divisive or a definitive ending, because we usually don't get that in a Halloween movie. Usually there's something, they leave it open for what, but I mean, obviously, when Michael is in the, getting chopped up, spoiler,
Lots of spoilers, folks.
There's no coming back from that.
Lots of spoilers. Yeah.
There's no coming back from that. And much like what I said for Halloween Kills. My biggest takeaway, the biggest positive glowing endorsement for this film I can give is Christopher Nelson's special effects. Again.
Oh, marvelous.
I mean,
marvelous work.
Incredible work. And I mean, the guy is so talented and so down to earth. He doesn't even, I don't even think he realizes how great the guy really is. I mean, because I pay attention to stuff. I mean, and when he was in that I mean, that head comes up. I mean, it looks legitimately like I mean, not that I've ever really seen one, but I mean, what you would expect it to look like. I mean, his effects were just amazing. A lot of things I did I know a lot of people didn't like the whole Christine feel with the junkyard and stuff like that, and how he, you know, has the same name as Arnie Cunningham and all that kind of stuff. I don't mind. I didn't really mind it. I mean, I was okay with it because maybe because I'm a big Christine fan. I don't know. I mean, maybe. But I mean, I could see how you know, even the music during the scenes there at the end, it kind of had a little bit of a Christine feel to it. And then I guess his stepdad, very symbolic, looked like Darnell from Christine. But you know what? I don't. It wasn't so much that it took me out of the story. I mean, that's where he worked. Whatever. If they wanted to pay a little homage to Christine, I was okay with that. I was surprised though they gave him the same last name. I mean, we knew his name was Cunningham, but I didn't think it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more subtle as a nod to Christine. I didn't think it was going to be so like, wow, in your face. That's so Christine. I can go on and on about things I didn't. I mean,
Jay, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go this time. We'll leave ladies for last because normally you have some of the best opinions on the show, Katie. So I appreciate you. So let's realize something with this. And I think out of everyone, it's the most surprising that I think I like this film the best. Because if anyone listens to Postmortem, you know how much I rag on us about Halloween and Halloween Kills and, you know, Evil Dies Tonight, and the fact that Michael Myers learns Kung Fu in part 2, and, you know, the firefighters and the mob, after bringing the mob together, they all separate and attack him single-handedly. I mean, one thing I think we all need to realize is that David Gordon Green, Danny McBride and company took a trilogy of Halloween movies and did 2 things with them. First, they made a horror film, a comedy film, and a drama. They made all 3. A slapstick comedy in the middle, if you look at it, a horror film, and a drama with Halloween Ends, a coming-of-age drama in a really darkest possible ways. And the second thing is, and I just realized this listening to Oz, does anyone realize that David Gordon Green, in essence, remade Halloween 1, 2, and 3?
Yes.
Think about it. Think about it for a second, folks. Halloween 1 is your slasher going after people. Halloween 2 takes place in a hospital. Same thing. And Halloween 3, guess what? The mask is basically transforming Corey into a monster. So, Katie, I'm glad that you realize that, and I appreciate you even more right now, because when you look at these films, and hats off to Christopher Nelson, the blowtorch kill, spoiler alerts, was my favorite of the entire night. I loved it. I don't necessarily love this film, but I definitely think it is the best of the films, and it deserves more props than it's getting. This film was meant to be like the original series was. Halloween 1 and 2 were meant to be Michael Myers. Halloween 3 was meant to be an entirely different story, and then it's supposed to be like an anthology series, basically in a nutshell. That's what this was about. And Corey, that's why you see my thing, Corey dies tonight. It's a little tongue-in-cheek because, yeah, I felt the Christine vibes, but you know what film I felt even more? Was kind of an apt pupil. I felt apt pupil to a certain extent because obviously for the first time there was a little realism in this series, because bullying, toxic lifestyle, among other things, are real themes that need to be addressed. And you know, Jason Blum, oh, by the way, hold on. Jason Blum, thank you. Jason Blum, thank you. Okay, he made another appearance on Postmortem. Not really, but anyway.
Someday, maybe.
He wants to he wants in his films to tackle modern day issues. And for the most part, he does a good job of that. But when you deal with something like this, where you have a film that's as powerful as this, I'm glad there's a realism in it, in the fact that Michael Myers looked like a 70-year-old geriatric hiding in the tunnel at the beginning of the film. All right. It's one of the things I think Halloween Ends did was really ground a lot of the storytelling instead of allowing it to be a big fantasy martial arts killing spree, which I hate to say for a part of it, it really was. It brought us all back down to earth. And that's why I believe, and again, the toxic fan pushback on it for horror fans is really terrible. This is exactly why horror will never get the respect it deserves, because of the fact that people are sitting there. And I'm a big Halloween fan. Halloween's my favorite franchise, even though I'm not a fan of all the parts. Love Michael Myers. And I lived up in Camp Blood. I lived up in Blairstown, New Jersey, a lot of my life. So being a Halloween fan in Friday the 13th territory was not necessarily always the best thing. Right. But the toxic idea that a lot of fans, not all fans, for anyone who goes ahead and likes this film in any sort of way, is just, it shows why horror fans, why they might be the most loyal and some of the greatest, they're also every time they do something like this, they push the genre back 3 steps. Because now they aren't going out to see it. It only made $41 million. Oh my God, only $41 million. Please stop. Please stop. Stop getting upset that it didn't make big bank its opening weekend. You know what? Because the fans ruined it. Most of the fans ruined it. And that's the shameful thing. Back to the movie now. I'll get off my plot bit for a second there. Loved what they did. Loved the kills. I was more of a fan of the buddy dynamic, because I think it's something that we didn't need to see Michael Myers doing the same thing through 3 films. We know what he's going to do. We got it. I'm glad they saved Michael Myers. Spoiler alert, they saved him to the end. I thought the story was slow at times. I really did. It was a little bit rough. I didn't know where the beginning was going to go, that opening scene. But I think we can all agree that opening scene was one of the best opening scenes we've seen in a while.
Yeah,
which was great.
Chef's kiss.
Exactly.
Chef's kiss. Yes.
It was really great. The music, the cinematography, the kills. The film is a good film, folks. And I got to tell you what, it's better than what we've seen, especially with Halloween Kills. Go ahead.
Let me ask you guys this. I looked at it, that beginning scene. I'm glad you mentioned that, because the kid in the Jeremy, right, coincidentally, I looked at him as the alter ego to Julian from the 2018 movie. He was a smart ass kind of kid, but you loved him. This guy was a smart ass kid. He was just a total, like, he was a total asshole. Yeah. But he was like the anti-Julian, which I thought was kind of a neat dynamic. But yeah, I mean, when he comes flying off that I mean, it was great. It was great. And one thing I think they did really well, and then I'll finish up, and Katie can go ahead and jump in. I love how Laurie, Jamie Lee Curtis, was reminded about her responsibility for this, because one of the things we haven't looked at through the first 2 Halloween films, and actually any of them, is what's the ramifications of someone who is decided to take things into her own hands and not think of anyone else. The idea that the town has now become rotten and these terrible things are happening, I thought was a really smart dynamic to play off of, because we never see Haddonfield as anything other than a town until this trilogy. To see it go from victim to enforcer to just plain villain was wonderful. And I thought that was a great way and a new dynamic and wrinkle and layer to add to this narrative. So I'm a big fan of this film. I'm not the biggest fan of this film, but I will say that I enjoyed it quite a lot. And hats off to David Gordon Green for making a trilogy of films that are all different in a variety of different ways. Katie, the floor is yours, young lady.
All right. Well, first and foremost, it took me a little bit after I saw the film, but once I had the realization, it was like a light bulb went out that yes, David Gordon Green basically has reimagined Halloween 1, 2, and Season of the Witch just like this. And if you liked all of those 3, that is what he's done with this. I mean, it's like And it's amazing to me how in Halloween Ends with, as you were talking about with the opening sequence, I mean, that honestly is gorgeous. It is beautiful, and yet it looks like nothing. I would not have known it's the same director. Like nothing about it looks like the first two films. The bird's eye view, the upward with the staircase. I mean, the whole aspect of it, and yet they do the typical horror tropes when Corey saying like, "This isn't funny, Jeremy," and I'm like, that's just classic. I'm like writing down stuff like, and classic line in a new movie. But yeah, I mean, this is a film about trauma and survival and trauma breeding trauma and trauma feeding off of trauma. And that's what I think Michael Myers has done. That's what the whole town has done in a way. It's like it fed off this trauma. It made it into something else. I did not like the fact that all these people are blaming Laurie, that Michael Myers came back and stuff like that. I thought that was bullshit.
I did too, because like you said, you said she was taking matters into her hands. It's not like she went after hunting him down. He showed up at her place.
No, whoa, hold on a second there, folks. Let's not confuse something about this, okay? Real simple here, okay? First of all, you eliminate the sibling dynamic. You basically cut out the legs of what Halloween Kills is going to be and Halloween Ends because you changed the dynamic halfway through the trilogy. That's the first and foremost thing. Second thing, real simple with this, folks. You're watching Halloween 2018. If I recall, it's Linda Hamilton, the second coming of it, who is doing nothing but going ahead and going after Michael Myers, burning down her house to do it. So please, as the hysteria builds from Laurie to the town and Tommy Doyle, evil dies tonight. Let's get a crowd together all so we can go one at a time at him and act like jackasses. Okay, let's do that. All right, Laurie is at the center of this, and she's been at the center of this forever. So please, some of the blame. Maybe you didn't like the way it was executed and the way that they came at her, but I'm going to tell you something. In the end, it is so satisfying to see everyone come together and understand it's over. But the blame has to be spread somewhere. I'm sorry.
Well, and I will go back on what I just said a little bit, because now that I'm thinking back in 2018, granted, yeah, he did show up at her place, but she actually was kind of hunting. She showed up and shot him when her and Frank first run into each other.
She locked him in there with a fiery death. Give me a break.
Well,
she locked him. He came to her.
Yeah,
she didn't go to him. She didn't track him down.
Yeah, he was chasing Allison, and the doctor took him to her house. Now, when they were at the other house where the first two kids, the babysitter, Julian's babysitter, gets killed, I can argue that because she was driving around listening to the police scanner, and she showed up and she did put a round into him, right or wrong, but so she was sort of hunting him down a little bit there. But as far as when he comes to her house, I mean, hey, you know what? I don't feel sorry for anybody if you go to somebody's house and they have defenses and things set up. Now, it might be way over the top to set your entire house on fire. Okay, I get it. But, if you go to someone's property, and you looking for trouble, you might find it. Is all I'm saying.
Well, and let's get to the point that she's not the one who coined the phrase "evil dies tonight." That was a nerd. True. And then Tommy said it, and then Tommy got it going. So who are they blaming? They're blaming the survivor. Tommy and Laurie's daughter were surrounding him, did all this stuff. The fact that the DJ used the R word when he's like, well, what happens when you taunt an R word? And this is what I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? She was in the hospital when that was going on. It's like she didn't cause a crash in 2018. She's not the one who said, hey, you know what is the best time to transfer this guy right on Halloween. I think that's the smartest thing to do is transfer him in a bus full of, mentally challenged, imprisoned people. And oh my God, there's a crash. That was not Laurie's fault. It's like this whole thing that they blame Laurie for taunting him. She didn't taunt him. She fought back. She fought back. And I think that was a bullshit, but I think that's an example of cancel culture. And that was the whole point of why this was going on. Cause it's like, are you kidding me? I mean, it's like, what, Lori, I'm shocked she was able to afford the house, that new house and this new one. Cause it's like, it's not like, I don't know what she's doing for a job. I mean, it doesn't seem like she's working at Walmart. She's making this book and doing this whole narration, you know, over the top and like all that stuff. I'm like, are we in Sex in the City with the butcher knife? Like, what's going on? But I think it had so many aspects that it's trying to talk about culture with like the blatant 1980s sexual harassment that I was like, what are you guys doing? But yeah, that's like trauma's feeding trauma, major Me Too movements, the whole thing with the overbearing mother, that's like a staple of any serial killer that's going on. And I love that the mother, who is played by, Joanna Baron, who is a mother and real genius. That was one of my favorite movies in the 80s. And you know, chef's kiss to her, girl, you have not aged a day since like 1986. So good for you. Like, she looks good. But yeah, evil does. I'm like, look at the stuff I written down, but like, evil doesn't die tonight. It changes shape. I mean, you've got an accident that happened to Corey. I love the fact that they definitely had to make that kid a total asshole. Because when it happened, I mean, look, if you want to talk about like, when the town like completely blames Corey, it's like, oh, you killed that kid, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, the kid locked him in. He was trying to get out. The kid fell over and it was a blatant accident.
Yeah,
but just like the stuff with Lori, you know, it's like, you know, they're both, it's like the freak show and the
psychopath and the freak show.
Yeah, the psychopath, the freak show, and which one is which, that quartet of bullies was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. Like, honestly, I felt I could have knocked them over. Like were they in a marching band? Like, I don't know.
They were.
They were in a marching band.
They were in a band. They said they were in a band. And when I was like, wait, are you guys in a marching band? It's like, welcome to 2022.
Exactly.
Anybody can be a bully. Anybody can be a bully, everybody. Because if this is what constitutes a bully nowadays, it's like, well, hello, millennium. Like, if that doesn't say the year, I don't know what does. But I like the fact that they had, you know, all these nods to Carpenter with The Thing and Christine. And I, too, saw the app people stuff. I also almost was going to say I saw a lot of resemblances to Grease, too, especially when he's in the same outfit and like riding the bike, which I know a friend of mine, we were talking and they were like, so did they have him work at that place so he could have the same jumpsuit as Michael? I mean, it saves time. And I'm like, That is a good point. Yeah. I never thought. Yeah, probably. I don't know. But you know, after when I first saw it and got out of the theater, I was like, oh man, people are going to hate this. I don't know why they did this. I don't know why they did this. But then it was like, yeah, the light came on. That son of a B, he totally did 1, 2, and 3 for, you know, the newer generation. Yeah, this is 1, 2, and 3 because, I mean, obviously, Season of the Witch was completely different than the first two. There's no Michael Myers. There's nothing. No. It's Halloween. It's menacing. It's all that stuff. And with this, I mean, you've got that whole like, you know, when he is choking Corey, it's like he's like doing a mind meld of all the trauma that Corey's had, and then feeding, and then Corey's like feeding off his strength, but then they're feeding off each other, and then. The same thing when, spoiler, we already talked about this, but with Lori, how he was doing the same thing with her. And Allison's like, hell no. And I hated the processional. I thought that was cheesy. I thought that was cheesy as F. I really did. I understand why they did it, because you needed to have everybody in that town like, look, you a-holes, look, this is him. She killed him now, so shut your mouths. She killed him, and we're going to grind him up into biscuits. Okay, now we can feed these to your dog, and that's fine. But I did like that Julian from 2018 was in that little processional, so that was nice to see his little face. Yeah,
growing up,
that was nice to see him. Yeah, but yeah, I thought, I mean, the cinematography in the beginning of it was just breathtaking.
Beautiful.
Like, it's honestly one of my favorite openings of a film of like this entire year. Like that was just gorgeous. The whole buddy system with Corey was kind of weird, but it was also just, I don't know. It kind of had that jagged edge kind of feel to it too. It's like, who's the killer? Who isn't the killer? Not necessarily for the audience, but for the people involved and stuff. I like that Allison is finally, I mean, think of the trauma that she lost both of her parents to the same killer within 6 hours of each other. I mean, she's stuck in this town living with her grandmother, who up until that night she thought was like badass crazy. And now she's working a job where her boss, it's like, is like a poor man's Tom Atkins, hitting on her 24/7, making her feel, totally uncomfortable. And then definitely sleeping with her coworker so she can't even, make more money in this town that she's in. And what does she do? She, falls for the guy who's like, look, I'm screwed up. You're screwed up. This deputy keeps trying to hit on me. I'm not having it. So why don't we just be screwed up together and get the heck out of this town? And that was a sweet love story. It just went wrong in so many ways. And yeah, I don't feel like this movie is as bad. Honestly, it may be my favorite in the trilogy. I didn't necessarily, I mean, I hated Evil Dies Tonight. I hated that whole thing and the mob mentality. And then everyone's forgetting that mob mentality that they had. The first one was kind of, I don't know. I don't know. The first one was fine, but I just always look, you guys, I don't know if we talked about it or not. I always got really annoyed with the fact that Michael Myers' doctor was Dr. Satan. Oh, really? Dr. Satan. Dr. Satan is Michael Myers' doctor, and you're supposed to be like nothing bad's going to happen in this. Come on. Really? Come on. So with this, I just like the fact that, David Gordon Green did 1, 2, and 3 in his way. And that's what this is. I know it is extremely divisive. I totally agree with what you're talking about, Jay. It's like horror fans. It's like, I think this is horrible. I think this is amazing. I think this is the best thing since Exorcist. I think this is like I love Exorcist. Ever. Yeah, it's the scariest film ever. Like this, it's like, it doesn't have to be the scariest film ever. And all these other films don't have to be the same as these original films. And they don't have to be the next Hitchcock or Carpenter, all stuff. They can just be who they are and make their own way and make their own films and their own
have to
view.
Agree
right.
That, for it, it doesn't mean like, I hated it. You have to hate it too, or you're wrong.
Exactly.
That's just ridiculous.
My
you
response,
mentioned, it's funny that you mentioned the Exorcist though, because that's what Christopher Nelson and their next up is The Exorcist.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, right around the corner with it. But one thing I'm going to say also, for me, it's real simple. Okay, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's your opinion. You're welcome to it. If you don't like it, great with it. But one of the big issues I had with this film is not only the fact that they cut the legs out from the sibling relationship, which makes it really hard to stand on when you basically eliminated what it's going to be in Halloween Kills. But what's more is the fact that at the end, and this is something they talked about for a while, when they were speculating what Halloween Ends was going to be like, was that it was going to be Michael came back then to stay in that house. He killed all those people because that's his house. Okay, great, got it. Okay, wonderful, love it. Why is he in the sewer?
Yeah.
I mean, either the editor decided it was a really shitty storyline and he needed to cut it, or they went ahead and they said, you know what? We're just throwing our hands up. We're going to do what we want. In that sense, Halloween fans, that's where you should be mad at David Gordon Green. Because David Gordon Green, one of the things he did do that I think as a Halloween fan, you should be angry about is him and Danny McBride and everyone else that's in that writer's room that's producing this said, listen, if this doesn't work, we're just going to wing it, or we're going to throw up in the air and we're going to change it on the fly. Because I have a very big problem, and this goes back again to Laurie being the prime antagonist, the prime spark, and why she deserves the blame in it, is because then why did Halloween 2018 work the way it is? Why is Laurie waiting for him? I don't get it. I mean, it's 40 years later, and hats off to pitch meeting. Ryan George. One of the great things he said was, so, you know, he's been terrorizing the town for 40 years. No, he killed 3 people in the 1970s, and then he was put away for 40, 50, 60 years. How many years?
He's been incarcerated for 40 years.
Exactly. So what is the point of it? If you're not going to have them be siblings, or you're not going to have her the motivation that she needs to come back, because if that's the case, then Laurie Strode doesn't need to be Linda Hamilton from Terminator. She's a person who's recovering. I would think she's more like she would be in Halloween Ends at the beginning and working her way towards what it would be what it would be in the third part. That's what I would think that it would be, going from more of a homemaker, someone who's moved on with her life, moving forward, almost like what Neve Campbell is in the Scream films. Very much like that. That's what I was hoping to be. And that's why I say she deserves some of the blame, and I'm good with the guilt that's put on her and the pain she feels, because guess what? If it's not for her, who are they coming to visit in the hospital? I know they're not visiting the crazy guy that they think is Michael, but is a foot shorter. I know they're not visiting him. I know they're not visiting Tommy Doyle or the police officer who happens to show up at the end of Halloween Ends. I know they're not doing it. They're visiting her, and she is the spark that this all comes from. But getting back to what I was going to say before, the idea that they put him in a drain pipe for 4 years and he's doing all this stuff and he's a 70-year-old man. I'm sorry, Halloween fans, if you want your villain right there, David Gordon Green, throw it at him for that, because they basically demoralize Michael Myers to the point where he barely is moving when Corey first faces him. He looks like a 70-year-old man. How is he supernatural? How is he been around?
That was going to be my point when you brought up the bullies and how they beat up Corey, but yet Corey's supposed to be able to overpower Michael Myers once he gets.
Marching band would have fucked up Michael Myers.
Marching band would have fucked up Michael Myers.
Well, that, and when he kills the cop, and he starts getting his power back, and then they have their Brokeback Haddonfield wrestling match in the sewer. I mean, and then so they go. There's so much of this that's why I'm saying these little things don't connect.
Right.
The thing that I didn't like, and I didn't really think about it until you just said that, Jay, about him being in the sewer and all that. And I understood, but this is, I think, the first Halloween movie where they took the Myers house out of Halloween.
Yeah, they did.
Yes.
There was
one
Myers
thing.
House.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to make, because there's definitely, besides Michael Myers and Laurie, there's a lot of that nostalgia that you have in like Halloween and Halloween Kills that they just completely are devoid of in this one.
Well,
like there's definitely nods to like other films that they have in it, but I feel like as far as the actual Halloween, they just want to you know what? We're already into Halloween. Let's just wipe the slate clean. We're not going to bring up this. We're not going to bring up that, and all that stuff. And I was like, that I thought was very interesting that they didn't even like drive by it and show that it's abandoned again or something. Like,
well, was the news clippings when it comes across, it states that it was destroyed. That they the
Myers house.
Yeah.
Can we see footage of them kicking Michael Myers out? Can we get the landlord to come in and say, listen,
the eviction police?
Exactly. Yeah. Pay your rent, or otherwise you're out.
See, that's part of what I thought was missing, because even though, in parts 4 and 5, and they use houses as the Myers house that don't resemble anything like the Myers house, 4, 5, and 6, but it was still there. In the Myers house in the Halloween franchise is like a character of its own. I mean, that's because that's where it all started.
Yeah, because you can argue that it's like that Michael's coming back for Laurie, but I don't feel like in Halloween he was. He didn't even, he's like, he got in the crash. No. He was trying to go to his house. Like, that's his central thing. Yeah, like, sure, there's this girl. And since there's no sibling aspect of it, he's like, oh, that's cool. You're someone I tried to kill. I don't really, he's just a shark. He's not really putting this personal aspect to it. It's like kill, 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 kill. Now, Laurie, going through the trauma that she went through, I know, Jay, you were saying, like, I don't understand. That's some effed up stuff she went through. That girl's not going to be right. for a number of years. Honestly, the way she was in Halloween did not surprise me at all.
But it's 40 years later on.
And it's not, I mean, maybe there's no really good therapy session or a psychiatrist in Haddonfield. I don't know.
I don't know. I smoke a big old bag of bowl of weed. I don't know. I don't know how you're going to get over stuff like that.
You know what? I'm not saying that the trauma should not be excluded. What I'm saying is that the way that she is, I think it should have been reversed. We should have seen the Lori from Halloween Ends in Halloween. It should have been Halloween Kills, where she's going through this trauma. And now things are starting to spiral out of control as she's moving towards the Linda Hamilton trauma that it is. Because I'll tell you something.
I see your
very
point.
Unbalanced. It's very unbalanced with her character in Halloween Ends and how she handles things. 1 minute, I mean, they try and keep her very sympathetic and they try and show that she's moved on from life. Then explain to me then how in 4 years she's moved on from it. Because it seems
because she's lost everything.
Well, that makes
because
sense.
She lost her daughter, she lost her son-in-law.
Yeah,
the only thing she has now.
Further in the hole then?
I would
think it would
I would say that. I would say it's like when she finally loses like everything, that's when she's got, it's like, you know what, I need to get this together. It's not just, it's like, I thought I could save them. I couldn't. It's like, I thought I could do this. I couldn't. All the things that I prepared for was just a waste. So it's like, I need to figure out what this to make sure that the only thing I have left, who is my granddaughter, is going to stay safe and then also maybe do some of those talk shows and write a book so I can actually make some money because I'm broke now. Because I, again, don't know how she's feeding herself because it's not like she's working and I don't know. I mean, that's one of those things when you see, this is the thing, like, let's get real. How are these people making money? It's one of the things like, people always talk about like, oh, well, that person's famous. Famous doesn't pay. You can be famous. People can know who you are. People can know your name. That doesn't mean that you can pay your rent.
They cut the scene where she was signing her posters. That's what they cut from.
Yeah. I get your point though, Jay, because they're really, you know, for her to have such a drastic change from Halloween 2018 and Kills to Ends, especially knowing, like she says, you know, it's been 4 years and since I've seen my monster, she doesn't know that he's dead or what. As far as she knows, he's still out there somewhere. So I mean, I get what you're saying, Katie, but it would, and maybe Al or Karen dying is what, you know, precipitated change.
Yeah, I think Karen dying is what facilitated the change. But I mean, don't blame Lori that no one knows where the monster is. Isn't it the policeman's job? I mean, let's think about it.
Oh no, I'm not blaming her for that.
I'm just saying because
she knew that he was never, you know.
He's too busy hitting on her. Come on, he's too busy hitting on her. Okay.
Oh, the deputy? Yeah,
he's too busy.
Now, do you guys think that he was he the kid? Was he the red-haired kid in the '78 flashback? Don't fuck with the Mulaney's. That's
maybe.
I'm thinking he was.
But I won't lie. I got to be honest with you. I thought it was a very sweet scene in the supermarket. And I got to give credit to David Gordon Green on this. I like the fact that you also saw kind of a human side to what Lori is. I liked it very much. I thought it was sweet. I thought it was a nice beat to get away from things. And then they accelerated right back up. But you know what? We should have saw that in Halloween 2018, not Halloween.
Yes.
That's where we should have saw that.
Yeah. That was such a cute scene. And it was funny because I was talking to a friend of mine who came over. The third time I watched it, the third night we watched it on Peacock. First 2 times it was in a theater. But he came over to see it. And I was like, man, you know, have you ever seen 2 people that had such lacking in game, you know, trying to flirt with each other? I mean, it was just so funny. And then, you know, the scene where we bring the lady, the survivor from Halloween Kills, I thought that was kind of out of, you know, was uncalled for too, of her blaming, you know, look at what he did to my sister, you know, it's your fault.
Neighbor. Yeah.
Really? I'm not the one who shoved a broken fluorescent light into her throat and made a pincushion of her husband.
Agreed.
You know, my house was on fire. Yeah. I mean, but you know, I don't see. And the other thing that really I took away that didn't make a lot of sense was there were a lot of things that they set up in previous films that in the interviews, they had even mentioned that these things were going to be a focal, a really important piece to the trilogy as it wraps up. And then it was just kind of nothing. This whole, they had made a big deal in Halloween Kills about this radio tower. And I mean, yeah, okay, I get that that was the radio station where he went up, but there was really no significance to the radio tower. I don't know, that I thought was kind of lame.
It perhaps a little bit tighter of an edit, cutting down a little bit, cutting off the excess that doesn't need to be there.
Well, and
I agree with you.
There was
a
lot of things that we saw in the trailers and the TV spots that didn't make it into them. So I am kind of curious to see if there's an uncut, Blu-ray that's going to come out and see.
I'm sure.
Maybe I'll, like it a little bit more with that. But the other thing I really didn't seem to fit right with me was, 1 minute Michael's out walking around and he's escorting, taking Corey as under his wing and, serial killer 101 here. Here's how you do it. And then, Corey gets pissed and he's like, okay, I'm going to go back. I got to go back to the sewer because I've got to have your mask. And Michael's just standing there. I mean, is that all he does? Is just stand there in the sewer?
Listen, it's past his bedtime. Okay, please give him a break. It's past his bedtime.
4
o'clock for someone his age. Okay, please.
He needs his rat jello and watch reruns of the Golden Girls or watch CBS. I mean, that's
Geritol.
I don't know.
Who knows?
It just didn't.
Who knows when he had his last solid, bowel movement? We don't know.
He may have had some Octavia or whatever. What is that stuff that
Activia?
Stuff that she did.
Yeah, that's what we'll put a little plug in there for.
Oh my God.
No, but I do agree. The lack of the house was a big misstep in the film. That's the house to me is almost as central a character as Michael and Laurie are.
Yeah, 100% agree.
I do like, now that I think about it, when Michael was in the doctor's house and Corey was killing the doctor and then, Corey tried to kill the doctor. Corey wasn't here's the thing. It's not, you need Michael because you could definitely tell that this is not Corey's forte. He was not going to be good at this no matter what happened. Like, he was really bad at killing people.
He was a spoiled brat who was killing people.
But when
he's hitting the door and stuff, oh God.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, and plus it's like the fingerprints all over the place and like smearing stuff. I'm like, oh God, you are like a crime scene wet dream. It's like, I mean, they're going to figure out who it is like immediately, you dummy. But when Michael killed Deb and he did the whole like this, with Bob, put her on the walls, stuck her. She was like, that was that was at least one little nod to Halloween. So, but that was the only one. I don't know. I mean, I think it's just a story about trauma and survival. And, you need to be careful because one can feed and breed the other. And I did like it. I didn't like, I mean, I haven't seen it 3 times. Good for you, Oz.
Well, I bought the tickets before Thursday, before I knew about the advanced screening that Jeremy Sheldon for Horror Hound shared a link so I got the freebie on Wednesday, which, funny story, I thought it was Tuesday and we actually went on Tuesday and they were like, oh, today's the 11th. And I was like, oh shit. So I was like, damn. So we actually went to the theater 3 days in a row, but we saw it 2 days in a row. But and then we watched it the third on Peacock. But I'm trying to follow Jay's instruction, watch a film 3 times before you get your.
It makes all the difference in the world. But I want to just go back to what you two said real quick about the house. I would have 2 questions for David Gordon Green and the editor. One, what draft did you guys decide that the focus was going to be Corey and not the Myers house? Because there is what I think is missing from it. I think Halloween fans would have been a little more satisfied is if they showed the flashback of the house being destroyed and Michael fleeing it or
Yeah.
Michael fighting. I think that would have been great. And I
Yeah.
wonder if that was not in the budget or because of the pandemic, whatever the reason is now they'll use for it. Why? And the second question I would ask is when you're going through this particular film and you want to cultivate this story and you want to cultivate a protege, you could say a protege, but really Corey's not a protege. I don't get the buddy dynamic to a certain extent I get, but this is a kid that's looking for anything to feed into that darkness. But when did you decide that you wanted what you want Corey to look like this, like a spoiled brat? Because he looks so much like a spoiled brat through. He's an emo. Someone like James Spader or Rob Lowe would play him in the 1980s. That's who would play him in the 1980s, because that's exactly that kind of character. That's the two questions I would ask, because, you know, Corey is such a central figure. Now, I don't think Corey Feldman was it. You need a kid. This is where I think James Spader would be perfect. He's a guy who looks good, but he could play the real quiet recluse, and all of a sudden he becomes the bad sleazeball. That's why James Spader works.
Corey
so well.
wouldn't have been good enough looking for
No, he's too much of the boy next door for it. But that's my two questions.
I don't think Corey was a good fit for her. I mean,
Corey, you know what? Corey himself, I mean, that character of Corey is so central to it. If you had gone in a different direction with the edit, if you had allowed him to develop, if you had done more of a Christine route more than it even did, it might be a different film entirely. But the Myers house, I agree with you on. Cutting it basically out and not having any connection, having no exposition whatsoever, really makes me kind of scratch my head on why. And again, it could easily be that David Gordon Green, Danny McBride and company said, you know what? Wow, this looks really cool on the board. You know what? We're going to throw this in the garbage. We don't really need that. We don't care what you have to say, because it's going to make millions of dollars and they don't really care. And it's at least 30 to 25 to 30 million right now in the black right now, based on how much it probably was for a Blumhouse film. So that's my two questions for it, especially when it comes to the Myers house, because I think it's sorely missing. It would have made it a little bit easier for Halloween fans.
Well, if they're following the whole thing with, Halloween 3 being like the original one, where you're going to take out something that's central to the story, like in Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, they took out Michael Myers. If you're going, because my thing is how as I discussed and how you kind of said too, that I feel like this is 1, 2, and 3. If that's it, maybe that was the central character they wanted to take out of 3, because that would make more sense. And because it's every single time, like no matter what director story, you've always got the Myers house, which it doesn't make sense why they want to just bulldoze that house and like done something to it. But you always have the Myers house. You always need to have this haunted house of a story that happened there and stuff. But yeah, I would think that maybe that is the reason why David Gordon Green didn't have the Myers house, is that in the film, because you can't take out Michael Myers. So you might as well take out the other his security blanket, which is the Myers house.
Oh, and by the way, Oz, I don't mean to jump in, but before I forget, who had the problem with Don't Fear the Reaper at the end? Am I correct? The song at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. It didn't really matter to anyone. Okay. I had a real problem with the fact of how they closed out with the song. Maybe it's just me, but I had a problem with it. I'm sorry.
It didn't really, I don't know. There was so much that didn't fit that I didn't really think that
because I thought the music itself overall really didn't matter to this movie even a little bit. I didn't think Carpenter's stuff really did anything for the film. I really didn't for me.
I think they jazzed it up a little bit around the whole Christine homage to make it sound a little, but I mean, other than that, it was like this, it didn't sound like anything we hadn't heard before. Now what I'm going to ask you, my big question is, okay, now you say David Gordon Green remade parts 1, 2, and 3. Now we all know this is not going to be the official end of Michael Myers. We're going to see, somebody's going to pick it up and reboot or whatever. Now, do we pick it up and remake part 4? Is Allison pregnant with Corey's kid and he's evil now? And I'm just saying.
Oh, so we can make a Larry Cohen film?
Yeah.
Or she's evil now.
Jamie Lloyd is a boy now instead of maybe it's Allison's kid.
Well, I got to tell you, I
You
think I
could
know
totally
what's gonna
go that
happen.
route.
Oz, I think I know what's going to happen. And I was thinking about this before because they compacted Michael Myers' body, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there's going to be blood and guts. Well, what happens if they cross over and make Jason X, but Michael X, and he goes into a
Michael
car
X.
and he comes to life, and now he's the mechanical version of Michael Myers.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
I think that would only work if they were in space.
it's a joke. It's
I know.
But it's
Well,
so
if you
ridiculous
really cross
that they
the-
should do more of them. It's so ridiculous, folks.
Maybe
I'm sorry.
maybe Michael Myers' evil soul goes into the Christine car and that Michael becomes a car that fixes itself. And I don't know.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
Can we move on from this topic, please?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I don't know. That's my take on it. I mean, I know lots of people hate it, lots of people love it, but you know what? You're entitled to your opinions, and where does this rank in this timeline for me? I think 4. I mean, I liked the original Halloween 2018 and Kills more than I did this film.
Rob Zombie doesn't look so bad now, does he?
I've seen those comments as well.
My question is, do you think that Frank and Lori are going to go to Japan and see those flowers? Because
Yes.
I thought that was a really
cherry
sweet
blossoms?
thing. Yeah, the cherry
Oh, I
blossoms.
thought they were talking about a rock band. Oh, that's the gin blossoms. Never mind.
That's
Sorry.
a gin blossom.
Yeah, sorry. No,
Until
I know it's a bad
hear
joke. It's a bad
from
joke.
you.
I think
I think the whole thing, like when he's like, "Oh, you cut your hair," it's like, really? That was sweet.
He was
That was
trying to
lame.
think of something to.
I know, and she did, but it's like it wasn't that. Okay.
Oh, they, you know what? I thought it was very, very sweet what they were saying back and forth to each other. Going
I
to
do too.
Japan, I don't know.
In my mind, where it goes on from here, Frank gets his prescription of the purple pill, and they go off and they live happily ever after with a few. And they do the whole Jaws thing where they, I'll show you my scar, you show me yours, and they have a few nightmares, but all right.
Scars meet.
Their date brought to you by Activia
and
Geritol,
the
and
purple
Prozac.
pill.
I thought it was blue. Did it change to purple?
I think it's blue.
I think it's blue.
I don't know. I've always heard people call it the purple pill. I don't know. All right, guys. Well,
I got.
Do we have any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Yes, and Oz, I said this to you before we jumped on here for the recording. I think when we look back at this, that this is going to be treated the same way as Part 3 was Season of the Witch. That in time, people will look at this film as a cult film, and it will be more endeared to them because of what David Gordon Green and company tried to do, which I appreciate very much. And overall, I think this is a great way, even though there's plenty to complain and flaws and everything else with it. I thought it really had a lot of great things that worked for it. I enjoyed it. It's my favorite film of the trilogy. And everyone who watches these postmortem knows how much I hate the first 2 films and how I rag on them. So I'm on board for this one. Would I see it again? I don't know if I'll see it again, but it definitely was a fun ride when we went ahead. And hats off to the blowtorch kill. Loved it.
Yep. For sure.
Can I go?
Katie, go.
For me, my favorite kill was DJ and his tongue like just flipping around on the record.
That was pretty
doing
good.
That was my favorite. I liked the blowtorch kill though. The blowtorch kill was very cool. Especially, it's sad that marching band is going to lose 4 people, but obviously they were jerks. And again, shows you that anything can happen in the Millennium Kids. Anything. You can do anything. I like if this is the way that Jamie Lee Curtis is going to end her ride as Laurie Strode, I think that's fine. I think she did a good job. She showed vulnerability. She showed remorse. When people were blaming her for what was going on, she was taking that blame. I didn't get it, but it's like, okay, you know, you've had 4 years, you've lost your daughter, you've lost your son-in-law, you've had a lot of stuff going on. You do your girl, write that book, go see those cherry blossoms with Frank. You know, you just have to not stay in the whole thing like Michael Myers' shadow, because you're actually living a life and he's taking them, and he's already taken so many lives that people are already living. I do not think this is the worst film of the year. I don't think it's going to be in my top 10 or like top 10 worst or best. I didn't think it was horrible. I knew immediately this is going to be very divisive. I don't watch any trailers or commercials or anything about it. So the only thing I knew is that Laurie was going to be in it. Michael was going to be in it. This is a huge, you know, a twist from anything I could imagine. But then, like I said, guys, as soon as that light bulb was like, now I know exactly what you guys are doing. So in going with that, what I think David Gordon Green was doing is like remaking or reimagining 1, 2, and 3 in his eyes. He nailed it, because that is exactly what 3 was. It was just batshit. It was completely on a left field. The only thing that it had to do with Halloween is the fact that it said Halloween 3. I mean, there wasn't much, but you know, you've got some classic kills. You've got a cute love story. You got everything that says so much about right now that I think, in time, it's going to have a much better response. But again, horror fans, we love horror for so many different reasons because it can be anything. So let it be anything. There's a lot, believe me, there are some real crap movies that are out there this year. This is not the worst of them. Honestly, I could give a list of those. And this is not the worst of them. So if you're going to do that, like, you know, we need them to make more horror movies. We need this to be winning at the box office, and it is. And 41 million. Oh no, that's so. Shut up. That is great. That is it's October. It's the second week. I guarantee it's going to make 100 million before it's done, and probably more than that.
Well,
so it's like
you take the Peacock option away from it. I mean,
yeah, but it's also stop judging films by the box office. And I know this is stuff that I think, didn't Scorsese say that recently or somebody like that? It's like, stop. There's been so many good movies that the box office has nothing to do with. It's like, it could be marketing. It could be timing. That's nothing to do with the quality of the film. There's also a lot of movies that are absolute shit that have made millions and millions of dollars that shouldn't. So don't look at the box office. Just listen to us. Okay, that's what you need to do.
Truth.
Amen.
Preach.
Amen.
Preach, sister.
One thing, and Katie, this also goes off what you said real quick before we jump off. Appreciate the fact that it's not the same old stale Halloween series. Now, for fans, guess what? Some fans are always going to need the same old, same old. Great. You go out and you enjoy your same old, do your Halloween marathon, go visit every single person that ever played in the films. Power. I loved it. One of the things I really loved about it was I got to see new inventive kills. And it was done by someone who took on the mantle of Michael Myers, even though it's very tentative and it's not as strong, but he tried to do some really different things. And you know what? I appreciate those kills, because that tongue kill, that blowtorch kill, I'm tired of seeing the swinging of the axe and the machete and the knife. I'm very happy with what I saw with that. So I just wanted to throw that in there, because Katie, I echo just about everything you say when it comes to this, folks. Appreciate when you have something that's not bodies.
Yeah. And one of the things too, I wanted to say real quick.
God, terrible.
Go ahead. two of my favorite shots. Okay. Well, there's really 3. And I wanted to ask you guys about the third. 2 of my favorite shots. Number 1 was the beginning, where that scene where from across the street showing the house reminded me so much of a Doyle house shot from the original Halloween. From that angle, it looked so good. And then the scene where Corey is standing at the hedge and she sees him through the window. I love that shot. I love that shot. Okay. Now the one that every time I ask somebody, they didn't pick it up, but I saw it both times in the theater, is when Corey is, when the cop, is looking for Corey in the sewer. Did you happen to see Michael sitting there
Yes, I
off to the
did.
side, and he doesn't
Yeah.
see him until
Yeah.
Yes.
he sees Corey? Okay. I was wondering because
Yes.
I saw him both times and I was like, oh, look, he was just like kind of like just sitting there, just
Oz,
chill,
I-
just watching him.
Oz,
I
I
thought
think
that
the
was amazing. I thought that was
cinematography
great.
for this film was one of the best things about it. I mean, there was some really
Yes.
inventive stuff. The way that they framed a lot of the kills, the opening scene was fantastic. The
Mhm.
way that they handled it. You know, if anything, the cinematography was the star here when it came to it, because the music was just so. The editing,
Cinematography
obviously,
and Chris Nelson's Christopher.
well, and
sorry.
I was going to say the effects work. Chris Nelson is a modern day master. He really
Yeah.
is, and what he's able to do, and he allows us to explore different things. And again, that goes to the different type of kills. Sitting there watching that blowtorch kill, seeing the fire come out of the face was freaking gnarly. It was so good. It was shot from a profile. It was wonderful. So I agree with you. The effects, the cinematography, overall, that for me was the standout for this. Well done with it.
100% agree. All right. Well, be sure to like and subscribe, please. We love all the feedback. Love the there. Did you get that at the theater? You get more
I
swag?
did. I got something else too, but I couldn't find. I thought I packed it for my trip to do for this review, and I can't find it. It was just a little swag that said "ends tonight," and I don't know where it is.
Swag ends tonight.
No, the swag. No, it was a little piece of swag that said "ends
I
tonight."
know. I was
Little
making another
button.
bad joke.
Whatever. Yeah.
You know, it's so funny too that they had the really bad dad joke in there
Yeah.
because Janelle
Yes.
Janelle drives us crazy with telling us these really bad jokes, and she thinks they're hysterical. And I said, you know what? They even had a little something especially just for you, sweetheart. And with the
Too tired.
too tired. Yeah, I was like, it was so fun. So, but all right. Well, everybody, if you haven't already checked it out on Peacock or at the theater, I recommend the theater. I always do, tend to.
I recommend the theater.
I
But,
trace that.
check it out. If you love it, great. If you don't love it, that's okay too. But
Yeah.
just don't shit on everybody else for their opinions.
Yeah. And folks, by the way, if you're going to make a comment about this episode, be appropriate, folks. Okay.
Be
If
an
you don't
adult.
like it, you be an adult, please. All right.
Be a
But
good
thank
human
you for
being.
tuning in. Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. Leave your comments. If
By
they're
the way,
nice.
Oz, by the way, and I'll bring in my friend Jason Blum right here. Here you go. Ready? If you don't be nice to us, we're gonna buy all the horror icons and make movies out of them. So you better be nice to us, because soon we're gonna own everything. And that's the truth, folks. Go out and see it, because Blumhouse is getting up a lot of these classic horror properties, and they're
Yep.
gonna make movies with them. And you know what? You want the best possible product out there. Just saying.
Yes,
Yep.
indeed. All right. Well, we will see you in the next episode. Be a good human being, and we'll see you later.
Bye.